Senator Nielsen.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, a yes vote countenances and continues to promote failed policies of the state of California, failed policies on water. What do I mean? For these decades, our whole water policy has been predicated on the sharing of the scarcity. Likewise has our energy policies, sharing of scarcity. That's not going to get us into the future for our children and our grandchildren. You are bequeathing them more drought because you are relying on conservation for everything. Again, we have not built new storage capacity. But 10 years ago, this legislature did pass Proposition 1, and the voters overwhelmingly passed Proposition 1. What was in part in Proposition 1? $2.75 billion for new large surface storage. 10 years later, and another severe drought, not one shovel has been turned. Why? The administrations, plural, their agencies, and I guess the people of California haven't complained about it. And the regulatory agencies of the state and federal government have belabored the process. So we, 10 years later, have not stored a gallon of water in Sites Reservoir, which was the chosen reservoir for that funding. There were other expenditures, but that's the main one. Now, the Water Commission just put in a measly $1 billion or so. Good for them. But this has been around for 10 years. And for 10 years, actually for longer than that, for 50-some years, we've shared scarcity. Where'd that get you? Did that help your constituents? No. They are now being asked to tighten their faucets even more. So 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, we'll have another drought. Yes, we will. I've farmed through 5 of them in my life. We'll have another drought. So what are we going to do? Oh, we're going to conserve more water. Are we going to store more water? Excess water that comes down from the Sierras? No. No, we're going to conserve because that's the vogue thing to do. That's the woke thing to do. That's the good thing to do. Well, folks, it hasn't worked. Let's admit that. Let's move on and put your pressure on the agencies of government to permit the building of a reservoir in Colusa County. Now, what did this legislature recently do? The opposite. I had a simple bill simply trying to increase the opportunity for large surface storage to encourage moving forward with Sites Reservoir. The very first committee in this House killed the bill, killed it, said no, no to storage. And those no votes said to the people of California, tighten your faucets more, people of California. We don't care about you. That's what that vote meant. Now, some of us, and those who are speaking loudest here today, are those who represent the areas where the water comes from. And what has happened in those areas? Well, for decades, our policies in forests and wildlands is to lock them up. Don't do anything with them. Result? Cataclysmic fires that have now moved into the big cities. Oh boy, now we wake up. Now we've got a problem. Now we're going to put a little bit of money into forest and wildland management. Well, I submit, I took some of us up to Paradise a few years ago to see the ravages of the fire. Well, the fires have an impact that some don't even think about. We were driving along in a bus, and I looked out the window, and there was a large wild boar, dead, barbecued, not on the spit, but in a fire. What do these fires do to the wildlife? destroys them. I've asked some folks, have they ever seen a squirrel explode? I have. That's kind of harsh, but that's the reality. The wildlife go up in flames, as does their habitat. That habitat also has a great impact on the watershed and the storage capacity of those watersheds, and the ability to utilize the excess water if we had some storage capacity. So, ladies and gentlemen, vote no on the past failed policies, and let's send a signal that we need to focus on storage capacity and managing our forests and wildlands for the sake of course, the fires and the disasters they bequeath, and the ravages of not being able to have sufficient water. And when you vote, think about your grandchildren. One last example. 10 years ago, we were negotiating in Governor Schwarzenegger's office at 2 o'clock in the morning on Prop 1. And I'm listening to the members that they're sitting and talking about themselves, talking about the next election and the impact that this measure might have in the next election. And after being frustrated at 2 o'clock in the morning listening to this blather, I said, don't you get it? This is not about you. This is not about now. This is about your grandchildren. And I looked around that whole table, including a governor, and the blank looks told me all I needed to know. That was not on their minds. If you vote yes, your grandchildren are not on your minds. I urge a no vote.